and thanks for joining us on Punters Inside Run. I'm Matthew Campbell. Great to have your company in what is one of the greatest days in Australian racing. We've got two cities. It's a tale of two cities. You've got the world's richest turf race in Sydney, and then you've got a race that most people consider the best mile-and-a-half handicap at Caulfield, the Caulfield Cup. Mick Sharkey, great to have your company as always.
Great to be here, Matty. Looking forward to getting stuck in.
They're totally two different races, aren't they?
Oh, they absolutely are, yeah. And look, the weather's going to play a part in Melbourne, but we'll sift through that a bit more forensically shortly.
We're going to find some winners. James Lamb and Nick Luchenyuk from punters.com.au will join us to talk about their respective states and cities. But let's delve a little bit deeper at the barriers. And let's start with the Everest. And we're talking about the richest race on turf. $15 million prize money up for grabs. Nature Strip is our favourite. And Nature Strip is getting up there now as far as prize money is concerned. Another $6 million here takes him up to about $25 million prize money. Not far behind the Great Mare. Winks is around that 26.5 mark. Is it too much prize money?
Oh, I don't think any of the owners would be saying it's too much prize money. I wouldn't mind having 10% or 5% of what Nature Strip's earned, but just goes to show you, obviously he's been the beneficiary of the massive prize money, having won the Everest before, but he's also got 9 Group 1s behind him, and the prize money in modern racing in this era is the best it is anywhere in the world. So Aussies are the beneficiaries all round, and Nature Strip at the top of the tree, the world's best sprinter, we certainly cashed in.
It's a slot race. When you have a short price favourite such as Nature Strip, is a slot race the way to go? If we have an even field, then a slot race has a little bit more excitement about it.
Everybody going to lock in Nature Strip, obviously, but there's some deals to be done, so it's probably close to 50-50, if not a little bit more in the owner's favour, I would have thought, with the Nature Strip slot negotiation, but it does sort of leave you clamouring for that next best thing, or something that could run in the thick end of the prize money, really. That's where you want to be.
Now, the Caulfield Cup, it's always a hard race. It's a great race. It looked very even. All of a sudden, we've had good tracks to race on in Melbourne. All of a sudden, we've had torrential rain, massive amounts of rain. Whatever happens, we have a heavy 10 track for the Caulfield Cup. Has it made it easier for you or harder for you to find a winner given we're racing on this sort of surface?
What was already a really open race, I think, this year for the Caulfield Cup is more open now. I think there's horses there that probably handle soft ground. Do they handle heavy? Jury's out. So, and the horses that do handle heavy, they don't immediately scream off the page, I'm a Caulfield Cup winner. So I think we might get an upset result. It wouldn't shock me if we got an upset result in this year's Cup.
And from the point of view of looking ahead, the Caulfield Cup is always a wonderful form race for the Melbourne Cup. Will this sort of heavy 10, we have to be wary going forward?
I think so, yeah. I think we'll have to be forgiving of horses that take their place that potentially don't have that true wet track form. If they go forward to a Melbourne Cup, need to forgive those. And likewise, if we get rain on Melbourne Cup Day, well, we're going to have a great form reference, aren't we? So, yeah, it's definitely a watch and see how these conditions play out over the next few weeks.
Got plenty of tips coming up. What's your confidence level like?
High. I had a bloody good day the last night. The Caulfield Cup was run on a wet track when Desperado won. I got the big 6. I cleaned up. So I'm ready to rock. I think we're going to make some cash.
All right, that's the sort of confidence we're looking at. That's at the barriers. Next up, we'll take a look at our Melbourne focus, the Caulfield Cup.
The betting brand for sports fans. That's better. Gamble responsibly.
Time now for our Melbourne focus on Punters Inside Run. Mick Sharkey is with me, and it's great to have the company of James Lamb from punters.com.au. James, thanks for your time, mate. Good to see you.
Good to be on, Matty. Thanks for having me.
All right, the Caulfield Cup, the time-honoured Caulfield Cup. We talk about weights, we talk about barriers. All of a sudden, we've had a deluge of rain. We've got to talk about heavy track form.
We do indeed. I've certainly gravitated to horses that I think will handle heavy, but barriers will still definitely play a part. You don't want horses doing extra work in the run or being held up on the inside and having to sprint hard on what is going to be a very testing track.
Lammy, Smokin' Romans is our favourite for the Caulfield Cup. He's coming off a Naturalism win and a Turnbull win. Traditionally, they are the form references, but neither race was run at a really strong tempo. How do you weigh that up? The pace of those races and the fact he was advantaged, or the fact he's got 2 good wins beside his name?
I'm going with the latter, the 2 good wins. I think I was saying to a friend earlier that if it was any other horse that wasn't Smokin' Romans, if this was an import that had the same prep as him, everyone would be declaring him and he'd be half the price. But because he's a horse who was beaten by Will John over the Caulfield 2400 12 months ago, people are looking for a reason to pot him, which I think is fair enough. But he does tick the boxes. 2,400 metre plus, he handles wet ground, and I just think he gets the perfect run in transit too.
Yeah, just 51.5 kilos, and Jamie Carr in the saddle as well. How much stock are you putting into some of these Sydney visitors that have been running on heavy tracks?
Yeah, I've actually got Numerium as the main danger, Matty. 5 starts since the Doncaster, placed in all of them, 3 of those at Group 2 level, and he's placed in 5 of his 7 starts on heavy track. So I don't have an issue with the wet, but for him, though, I think it's the 2,400 metre. That's the main query with him because we just haven't seen him do it in Australia.
What do you make of Duais? On her best form, she would absolutely wipe the floor with this lot, but her runs leading into this race, they've either been typical Cummings-style prep runs or she's just not going that well. How are you reading it?
Yeah, I tipped her for this race a couple of months ago. I was pretty keen, and even after her first up run, I thought she did enough there, first up over 1,400, but been pretty underwhelming since, and I thought she was particularly disappointing in the Turnbull. So I've gone around her. We know she was beaten a long way in this race last year as well, so maybe Caulfield's not her track as well, Sharky.
All right, it's the moment of truth here, James. Give us your numbers for the Caulfield Cup.
No worries, mate. I'm going with Smokin' Romans. I just think he's got the right lead-up form. The Turnbull, even though it wasn't run at a strong tempo, it has been the right race for this. I'm putting a bit of a pen through the Metrop form. I've got Numerium for second. Gold Trip, I can't see him turning the tables on Smokin' Romans, but 2,400 metre form, he's a horse who's beaten the Naval and Stradivarius over this distance. So if he puts anything close to his best foot forward, he can certainly figure in the placings. And I've got Chapada, number 15, as a one to throw in exotics, Matty. There's a good Chapada and a very bad Chapada. If the good one turns up, he can run a race. He was having his third run in this race, and look, 4 lengths off Very Elegant in what was a much stronger Caulfield Cup. I think that reads okay for this.
All right, Chapada the roughie. Shark, what about your selections?
I've sort of ebbed and flowed on this race, Matty. I've landed on Inspirational Girl.
You have landed on it.
I have landed on it.
I didn't see it.
Well, she would have complained if I landed on it. But
Well, she definitely would have complained if I landed
I
on
only
it.
sat on a horse once and it tried to throw me off. So I think she'll get through the ground, and she's bred to stay a trip too. She's a reliable man out of a Zabeel mare. She should run the distance. So I'm with her. I think she's a value bet.
All right, I've got a leg run on top ahead of Smokin' Romans and my roughie. I think Knight's Order will make it a genuine run race. That'll be up there in the numbers as well. Before we let you go, James, what about some others at your best at Caulfield on Saturday?
Yeah, I think we need to get the cash early, Matty, while they're still racing there. Hopefully we do get through the car, but I'm keen on one in race 1, number 1, Quang Tri, around the $3 mark last time I looked. I'm a huge fan of the Patrick Payne stable, striking at close to 20% this season. Filly hasn't raced for about 90 days, but had a trial on a heavy 10 over 1,000 metres and got through that fine. And I just think she'll be too good for these. The second favourite is coming from a maiden win at Cranbourne, so it's a pretty big step up for that second fave climbing star. Quang Tri's got the runs on the board.
All right, James, thanks for your time, mate. Look forward to catching you next week.
Thanks, Matty. I'll see you next week.
James Lamb from punters.com.au. That's Melbourne. After this, our Sydney focus, the Everest.
The betting brand for sports fans. That's better. Gamble responsibly.
It's racing in Sydney. Mick Sharkey is with me, and it's a great pleasure to have Nick Luchenuk, or Nick H as we like to call him, join us from punters.com.au. Nick, great to have your company.
Thank you, Matty. Great to be here.
Now, let's talk about the Everest. Is it a benefit for Nature Strip? Is he just going to turn up and win his second in a row? It certainly looks that way. The barrier's not going to be a problem.
Not at all. Connections have spoken in the past that they prefer to be out wide than, a chance to be cluttered up with an inside draw. So the draw, not a concern at all. I'm not quite as bullish, I guess, that it's a benefit for him. What we do know is his best wins the race. He has at times dipped in his career, and sometimes that has been second up, but that's been a little bit different. This is a grand final. Those other sort of failures, I guess, if you want to call it, we're heading towards a grand final.
Nick, as you say, he's not unbeatable. He has been beaten before. What do you think his Achilles heel is, particularly in this race?
Look, we've obviously got a whole lot of pace in the race, but he does settle a whole lot better. But it's just, I guess, if they do go a bit silly, if he gets a little bit fired up, that it does set it up for something in behind them. But I personally can't see that happening. It would only be he just drops a length or two, and there's a couple there that could take advantage if that happens.
Probably preempting a bit about your numbers, but who do you think are the main dangers? I mean, Lost and Running has been very impressive.
Yeah, for mine, it is Lost and Running because of what we've seen this campaign. He's a 6-year-old, but probably capable still of finding a little bit more improvement. And he's at his best. And Eduardo as well, the old boy, 9-year-old now, but still going pretty well, was in the lead to the 75-metre mark last start.
Yeah, Eduardo's still going pretty well, still about $6 million in prize money. All right, give us your numbers then for the big race, Nick.
Yeah, numbers. Number 1, Nature Strip, all pretty boring, unfortunately, but 1 here to beat number 3, Lost and Running. Number 2, Eduardo, and Master Crusader number 4 in for 4th. So it is the quality horses that we've seen at this level before.
All right, Shark, I gather you've got Nature Strip on top, but who have you got second, third?
I think you have to have Nature Strip on top. And look, you're getting a good price to play too. I think about the world's best sprinter. I've got Marzu to run second. I think he's ready to peak for a grand final. And Lost and Running, who beat Marzu home last time. I think they'll just reverse placings from last start.
Yeah, I've got the same numbers. I've got them the other way around. Lost and Running to run second, and Marzu has a great record on wet tracks and has won third up before. So no real surprises there in that race. But it is a big day at the Everest, Nick. So we need to find out a couple of other winners. What else should we be following at Randwick?
Look, wait late in the day for 1 if they choose to come up to Sydney in race 10. Cap de Soir raced in Victoria, and an import who it looks really impressive. Look, I know on the ratings she's not well off here. Polly Gray's thrown in really. But I've just got a concern with Polly Gray first up against a horse that's really on the up in Cap de Soir. Her closing splits there at Sandown were very, very good. I think she can make this grade if they choose to come to Sydney.
All right, mate, great to have all your expert knowledge on racing in Sydney. Look forward to chatting next week.
Thank you, Matty. Join you next week.
Beautifully done. Nick H with all the expert commentary, as I said, for racing in Sydney. So that is the Everest put to bed. Next up, it's all the tips for the big call. This is the big call where we recap all our expert tips for 2 massive days, the Caulfield Cup and the Everest. Mick Sharkey is with me. Mick, what about you take us through James Lamb from punters.com.au, his tips for the Caulfield Cup and his best?
Well, Lambie's very confident, and he's with Smoke and Romans in the Caulfield Cup, and his first 4 in the Caulfield Cup, Smoke and Romans from Numerian, Gold Trip and Chapada at a big price, yes. Matty. Now, his best bet is in race 1, number 1, Quang Tri, and his next best is St Bathans, race 2, number 6, to beat the favourite. So Ruffy for the day there is Lem Picker in race 6, way down the bottom, number 15. All
right, our Sydney expert is Nick H, and he's gone with Nature Strip in the Everest. No real surprise there. For his top 3, he's gone Nature Strip, Lost and Running and Eduardo. So no real surprises. We're all around the same sort of thing there. His best bet is Cap de Joie. Got to wait till race 10, number 14 there. Then his next best is, I don't know how he's tipping this horse,
Espiona again.
Again. Race 8, number 14. This horse never wins. Anyway, good luck, Nick.
Forgive.
Ruffy, you got to go to race 9, number 5 for Lord Ardmore for his best Ruffy. Thanks, Nick. Good luck. What about you, Shark? Start us off with the Caulfield Cup.
Caulfield Cup, my top 4. We're going with Inspirational Girl ahead of Numerian. I think he'll run a really good race on speed. Maddie Jewis, I'm throwing her in there with the class, and Knight's Order, another on pacer. My best is in race 4, Foxy Cleopatra. Love the name. Love the filly too. I think she'll win this and then go on to the Oaks. Next best, on with Lambie, Quang Tri, race 1. I think she'll be very hard to beat.
And your tip for the Everest?
Tip for the Everest, well, Nature Strip, of course. Just fill up.
All right, well, look at mine. I've got the Caulfield Cup. I've got Allegron on top, ahead of Smoke and Romans. Then we go to Benno, has a good form around the same sort of horses. And then Knight's Order to lead and run in the top 4. The Everest, I've got Nature Strip on top, Lost and Running, and then Marzu. And my best bet for the day at Caulfield, it's the Omen bit of the year, Shark.
Yeah, what's that?
Angry Skies. Angry Skies. It's pouring all over the place. But a good run first up. It was a winner at Sale for the Hayes Camp. And then got form around Elliptical, who ran very well in the Guineas.
Yeah, terrific form. Look, it's a really open race, but I think they've got a good one there, the Hayes team, with Angry Skies.
That is the big call. Thank you, Mick Sharkey.
Thank you, Matty. Great to be here.
And that's it for this week. Make sure you subscribe below so you don't miss next week's episode. And it's an episode, Shark, where we're going to find the winner of the Cox Plate right here on Punters Inside Run.